1 minute smarter, every market clearer. Welcome to my channel, I'm Claire. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's deep dive. Today, we aren't going to talk about specific AI code implementations, nor are we going to predict the parameter scale of the next large language model. Instead, we're going to explore a grander and perhaps more unsettling topic. In this era of breakneck technological advancement, what kind of power struggles and social contract restructurings are we actually facing? Recently, a video sparked a tsunami of discussion across social media. U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders pointed the finger directly at Elon Musk, raising a series of soul-searching questions about the cost behind the AI boom. This conflict is more than just a war of words between two public figures. It actually reveals the most violent fractures of our time. Let's take a closer look at what exactly Sanders is worried about. In the video, Sanders points out with an ironic tone that tech giants like Musk are painting a golden age for the public, a future where humans no longer need to work, and everyone enjoys high incomes and free resources. But interestingly, Sanders isn't blinded by this grand narrative. He raises three extremely specific, even brutal questions. First, regarding youth employment. If AI replaces all entry-level jobs, young people just entering society will lose the chance to start their careers. Sanders asks, without income from a first job, how will these young people pay the maintenance fees for the so-called free housing Musk promises? Second, he focuses on manufacturing workers. If assembly lines are taken over by robots, who will be responsible for the lives of middle-aged workers with specialized skills who lose their livelihoods and fall ill before the so-called free healthcare is ever realized? Finally, he mentions the grassroots service workers who keep society running: nurses, cleaners, and cashiers. When their roles disappear and the pillars of their families crumble, how will society relocate them? I find this point fascinating. Sanders is actually exposing a fatal trap regarding the time gap. Tech leaders are often only good at describing the perfect destination, but they never explain how to navigate the pain period, which could last decades and be filled with blood and tears. The deeper crisis lies in the distribution of power. If the wealth created by AI is held only in the hands of a tiny few geniuses, then this so-called universal free system is essentially just charity that can be retracted at any moment. Interestingly, this concern has triggered reflection within Silicon Valley as well. Tech investor Chamathur Palihapitiya keenly captured the cognitive crisis currently facing the tech industry. Put simply, the self-congratulatory prosperity of the tech circle and the felt recession of ordinary people exist in two completely parallel universes. When we look at tech headlines, we see Nvidia's stock hitting new highs and Microsoft injecting billions into OpenAI. But in the eyes of the general public, this looks more like a circular trade financial game. Giants invest in startups, and those startups use that money to buy computing power and chips from the giants, while wealth inflates wildly within a tiny circle. Data tells us a cold reality. Nearly half of the US population does not own any stock at all. For this 50%, Nvidia's market value doubling or tripling has only one connection to their lives. Their electricity bills might go up due to the massive construction of data centers. As Jason Calacanis said, while tech leaders talk about geopolitics and the AI race, ordinary parents only see doubled egg prices and the fear of their children being unemployed upon graduation. When the profits brought by technological progress are intercepted by capital, while the energy pressure and social risks are shared by all of society, the original social contract has effectively broken. People are stopping believing in the fairy tale of a rising tide lifts all boats and are instead worrying that only those with luxury yachts will survive, while those in small, broken boats will be instantly submerged by the giant waves. So, has history left us any enlightenment? Chamath proposed a very profound point. Contemporary tech giants should learn from the robber barons of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. During that period, known as the Gilded Age, humanity similarly experienced extreme wealth concentration brought about by the Industrial Revolution. Industrial tycoons of the time, like Carnegie, Rockefeller, and Ford, also faced extreme public anger and were seen as sucking the blood and sweat of workers. But how did they obtain social license? Carnegie's logic was social dividend payments. He established 2,500 libraries worldwide, allowing ordinary people, regardless of wealth, to share in the dividends of knowledge. This effectively transformed a portion of private wealth into public goods. Rockefeller chose ladder building, putting wealth into universities and medical research to provide the possibility of upward mobility and public health protection for society. And Henry Ford's greatest contribution was realizing that he had to make his workers able to afford the cars they produced. This interest-sharing model created a vast middle class and gave his wealth long-term legitimacy. By contrast, Chamath issued a stern warning to today's tech leaders: stop the conspicuous consumption. In the eyes of the public, obsession with luxury goods and foolish spending is a provocation to the suffering masses. In the AI era, if you have a massive balance sheet, you must put real money into things that lower the cost of basic education, reduce drug prices, or solve the housing crisis. Only when you create visible, tangible benefits for ordinary people do you possess the social license to continue innovating. Otherwise, this wealth may eventually be forcibly reclaimed through harsh taxes or even social unrest. However, when we turn our gaze to the other side of this debate, Elon Musk, you find a completely different logic. Musk's biographer, Walter Isaacson, observed that Musk is a classic builder rather than a consumer. He sold all his California mansions and lives in a 2-bedroom prefab house in Texas. To him, wealth isn't for buying yachts or art. Wealth is more like points in a video game. It's the fuel used to clear the next level. Musk's logic is extremely hardcore. He needs this money to go to Mars, he needs it to develop physical AI to liberate humanity, and he needs it to achieve the electrification of transportation systems. This leads to a very fundamental dispute: in whose hands is wealth more beneficial to society? The logic represented by Sanders is, through taxes, give it to the government for secondary distribution. But Musk and his supporters believe that if you give this money to the government, it might vanish within a week into the government's daily expenses, leaving no long-term value other than filling a deficit. Conversely, staying in Musk's hands can build SpaceX to lower spaceflight costs and Starlink to bring internet to remote areas. Musk believes the future of AI shouldn't just be chatbots on a screen, but real productivity that can care for the elderly, clean streets, and do heavy labor in factories. This massive increase in productivity is itself the greatest contribution to society. The reason he insists on having 25% voting power in Tesla essentially stems from a persecution complex-style sense of responsibility. He worries that if AI falls into the hands of professional managers who only care about short-term profits and ignore human destiny, the consequences will be catastrophic. He views control as a form of guardianship, and wealth as the hard currency to maintain that control. These two completely different paths of social responsibility, Carnegie-style wealth distribution versus Musk-style investment, bring us to a point where value creation and value distribution are seriously decoupled. In the industrial age, becoming rich meant hiring thousands of workers, which was a positive cycle. But in the AI era, this logic fails. An AI company consisting of only a dozen geniuses and tens of thousands of servers can have a market value exceeding a traditional enterprise with hundreds of thousands of employees. At this point, a misalignment between efficiency and fairness occurs. From an efficiency perspective, Musk might be right. Handing capital to the most visionary geniuses indeed drives technological progress the fastest. But from the perspective of social stability, Sanders is also absolutely not wrong. Because a society with only efficiency and no sense of participation is like an airplane with only an engine and no cabin. No matter how fast it flies, it will crash. I find there is a key point here ignored by many, and that is the sense of meaning. The reason Sanders' questions resonate is that work is not just a means of obtaining a paycheck. It is the core way ordinary people gain social status, build social networks, and find self-worth. If Musk truly realizes that work is optional, utopia, hundreds of millions of people will lose not just their income, but the very center of their lives. When most people feel they are useless and can only rely on the crumbs of profit leaking through the fingers of tech giants, the mental health and sense of dignity of this society will collapse. This is why the social license, mentioned by Chamath, is vital. Tech giants must realize they are not just manufacturing products, they are shaping the entire social structure. If they cannot prove that their wealth allows the majority of people to participate rather than just being passive beneficiaries, then social hostility toward wealth will not disappear. To summarize, this debate about AI wealth and the social contract has no absolute winner, only painful choices. Bernie Sanders reminds us not to crush the lives of ordinary people on the road to utopia, while builders like Musk remind us not to stifle the drive to create the future out of fear of injustice. If we only worry about slicing the cake and stop making the cake, eventually everyone will only be left with a slice of poverty. We are at a crossroads in history. The contract of work for reward that has lasted for several hundred years is failing, and the blueprint for a new contract has not yet been drawn. We need Musk's fantasies to break the limits of resources and productivity, but we equally need Sanders' sobriety to ensure that every individual, whether they understand coding or hold stocks, can have a decent life and a respected value in this era of technological explosion. The legitimacy of wealth should not only depend on how it was earned, but more importantly, on how it is used to serve all of humanity. In the AI era, the ultimate wealth should not just be a number in a bank account, but a kind of trust asset that allows society to reach a consensus and makes ordinary people feel at peace. If tech giants continue to work behind closed doors, indulging in the internal cycle of wealth, then what awaits them might not be the sea of stars on Mars, but a furious reality. Society is like an airplane flying at high speed. Musk is the genius engineer constantly improving the engine, pursuing flying higher and further, believing that as long as the speed is high enough, we will reach the other shore. Meanwhile, Sanders is the crew member shouting loudly, reminding everyone. If the heat from the engine is burning the seats in the cabin, and most passengers don't even have a parachute, then no matter how fast you fly, you may eventually face the risk of a crash. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to stay tuned. I always appreciate your feedback, so drop a comment below. Thanks for listening, and catch you later.